let's like sort of rapid fire, like best tool for that use case, right?
Okay.
For research,
Yeah.
the AI tool that I use the most, more than any other AI tool. Hey, welcome to the Next Wave podcast. I'm Matt Wolf. I'm here with Nathan Lands. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the various large language models that are out there. I feel like one of the things that we hear a lot is like, okay, you've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Llama, you've got Perplexity, you've got Grok, you've got, the list goes on and on. But the reality is some of these tools are really good at some things, some of them are really bad at things. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time on this episode just kind of deep diving in, like, what's this good for? What's this good for? If I was doing copywriting, what would I use? If I'm using research, what would I use? So just something I think should be a really valuable resource for people. Just, hey, I need to do this. Let me go double check with that episode of The Next Wave on how I actually should do that. Like, what tools should I be using to go do that? So that's what this episode's all about. We don't have a guest today. It's just me and Nathan chatting from our own experience about these tools. Just getting into it here. One of the biggest news in the AI world right now is from ChatGPT, from OpenAI, right? They just released their new OpenAI O1 model. Maybe, do you want to kind of break down what that is?
I mean, some of it we don't fully know how it's working yet. There's a lot of like debate about what's actually going on with the new O1 model. But the way that they're describing it is, this is a new paradigm. This is in the past, the large language models, they're really great at, they're trained on tons of data and they can pull out, they can make great stuff from that, but they can't really reason about what they're seeing, right? And so they're saying that this is now a basic reasoning that they kind of attached on top of those large language models. It's not like from what I can tell so far, like it's not, there's not great use cases for like regular people yet.
Right.
Like it's a little bit better at editing and coding and a few things. But the big deal probably is that now you can, it's almost like in the past, the large language models were like, it had like half a brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like the creative side or something like this. And now you have like the logic side is there now too. It's like, you put those two together, like it's amazing. With the reasoning side, it's all at inference time.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a whole nother side of things that they can improve now. Where like, you can just throw more GPUs at this. And so like, all the talk about like, we've hit a limit and it's not going to get better anytime soon. Like, no, this is, there's no end in sight now. Like this is going to continue to get way better. And the people at OpenAI, they're saying like, it's almost like this is like the GPT 2 or 3 moment where they built this amazing new, they've had a breakthrough, but consumers can't really realize that yet. There's not like, if you just use it in ChatGPT, you're not gonna have like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like, it's like slightly better at some things, but there's more going on beside, behind the hood that people are gonna see pretty soon.
Yeah, so it's using what they call chain of thought reasoning, right? Where basically there was a technique that people used when they were, quote unquote prompt engineering called chain of thought reasoning, where you would ask it a question and then within that same prompt, you would say, think this through, think it through step by step, and that was how people would do this chain of thought reasoning. To me, what this is they've just sort of baked that in. So now you don't have to ask for that chain of thought reasoning. You don't have to tell me, think this through step by step. I guess what I'm still uncertain about is like, how is this new model super different from just doing that sort of prompting technique?
The rumors I've heard from like friends in Silicon Valley who know people there is like, it's based on that idea, but there's more to it than that.
I get that impression. Yeah.
And so I don't know, we could guess what that is, but like we have no idea. Like,
And when you use this new OpenAI model too, it actually will show like a little sort of dialogue thing that says like thinking or whatever, right? And it's got a drop down arrow. And if you open up that drop down arrow, it will actually show you sort of what it's thinking. But from what I understand, it's actually not really showing you what thinking. It's almost like, it's almost as if it's what it's thinking is a much longer prompt, and then it's using its own sort of like AI model to give you a summarized version of what it's thinking.
Yeah, well, people were saying, oh, it's amazing. You can actually finally see what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And now we don't have to worry about like AI taking over the world. We can see what it's thinking in real time. And then OpenAI was like, oh yeah, we're not actually like necessarily showing that to consumers. like we have the capability to do that now, though. Apparently, they are saying that they have the ability to do that, I believe.
Yeah.
But they're not making all of that known to like regular people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're getting some kind of like edited down version of what they decided to show people.
Right.
It's still pretty cool to see that.
And a lot of the rumors are, right, we've been hearing about this strawberry, right? And Sam Altman trolled everybody by putting image up on his Twitter saying,
and
I love
strawberry account as well too. The guy, I don't know who it was, a real person or if it was.
So there's been a lot of talk around strawberry, and then this came out. So a lot of people are like, hey, strawberry's finally out, right?
Yeah.
But we're here at Inbound, and we've been talking to a lot of people who are deep into AI as well. And somebody's like, yeah, it's not even strawberry, it's something else. It's actually the Orion model, which is different than strawberry, Q-star, whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like also, is this GPT-5 or is that something else too?
Yeah,
because maybe the large language model itself is going to keep getting better and better. Maybe they're still working on that, and maybe there is another GPT-5 coming.
Yeah,
this reasoning thing is another thing that now they can improve upon. So.
Well, the way they announced it on their blog as well was like, we're resetting the counter. I don't remember the exact wording, right? But they're like, we're resetting this, so we're starting with 01,
and
right?
Still keeping it super confusing with like preview and mini and all.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? So like the version of 01 that we're seeing right now is the preview version. All of the benchmark tests, like if you look at their blog, you'll see that it outperformed in like PhD reasoning and math and science and all of these like STEM related topics, right? But everything that it's showing that really, really outperformed is the OpenAI 01 model, the full model.
Yeah.
We're just seeing the preview model, which if you look at those same benchmarks, they're better than what we were getting, but they're not like insanely better. They're not like, the PhD level that they're showing on these charts.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of gets us closer to AGI though too, right? Because like OpenAI had put out their like tier list of like getting to AGI. I think number 2 was reasoning, and number 3 was agents.
Right.
And so now they're saying they have reasoning. They're saying it's not great, but is the basic foundation of how you would build reasoning into an AI system. They've nailed that now.
Yeah.
And then apparently, like David Sachs on the All In podcast, he was saying something the other day where apparently the word is that the OpenAI investors have been told by Sam Altman that they've nailed agents, that it's working. Like the new 01, like that they haven't shown people publicly yet, but in private it's working, and agents are actually going off and doing work. It's like work that companies would love to have the agents just doing for them. It's actually working. And so, agents in the past, like, we had Yohei Nakajima who did Baby AGI and all this on, and great concept, but like a lot of this stuff just didn't work. Like it would go off and try to do stuff for you, and it would like get confused, and like, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And you could possibly even run up a huge bill for you too, because it just keeps trying.
Yeah.
And so if they've actually nailed that, I mean, it's going to be a huge step forward when that comes out.
So just for anybody who's listening that maybe hasn't listened to like previous episodes, when we talk about agents, an agent is essentially like, it'll do multiple steps, right? You can give it a task, and it will go and potentially use tools and do multiple steps for you to get to the result that you wanted. So like examples people might give of like an AI agent might be something where I go and ask it to book my flight for me, right? And it goes and checks your calendar, sees what times you have available, and then it goes to the airline website and sees if there's any flights that are available within that window that you want, and then it books it for you, and then sends you a Slack message to let you know that it booked it, right?
Yeah.
So an agent is like all of like a multi-step process.
Yeah, possibly using different APIs to get things done. One example could be like if you're doing in marketing, like doing a marketing report, you could say, go off and get me this data and like, create a PDF and like do a report. Like that's something that used to take a lot of time. In theory, agents should be able to easily do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so Sam Altman said, I don't remember if he did it in a tweet or if it was on the blog post, but he basically said, for most cases, you still want to use GPT-4. Yeah. He said for most of the cases, you still want to go use GPT-4. You want to use OpenAI 01 if you really need it to think through logic or do a math problem or solve really complex like things that require more logic. Right. So that's why we wanted to do this episode, is to kind of talk through what are some of the large language models pros and cons. Like what models should I be using if I need this task done? Which models should I be using for this task over here? Right. And so we wanted to start by talking about ChatGPT and this new OpenAI 01, because you probably don't need 01 for most things. Like maybe go and ask it some complex questions just to see what it's capable of and look at the way it's reasoning. Yeah. But for 99% of use cases, GPT-4 is probably going to be better for most of your use cases. But obviously ChatGPT isn't the only game in town, right?
Right.
We've got ChatGPT, we've got Claude, we've got Llama, we've got Gemini, we've got Grok, we've got all of these tools.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Claude. For me, this is what I think Claude is the best at. I think Claude is really, really good at like storytelling, and I think it's amazing. This is what I use it for more than anything else, is summarization. Taking a fairly long document. Now, it does have like some context token limits where some documents tend to be too big. It seems to be based on file size on Claude, though. Like on Claude, I don't know the exact file size, but if you go over like 20 megabytes or something, it'll say it's too big.
Right.
So if you have a long PDF, you can actually take that PDF, run it through a compression tool, shrink the file size down, and then Claude will read it. So I've actually downloaded some like PDFs from archive.org before, tried to throw it into Claude, and it would say, oh, this file's too large, and it would be like 20 megabytes.
Yeah.
So I went on Google and I said PDF compression tool, right? And I found a free PDF compressor, and it would compress that 25 megabyte PDF down into a 1 megabyte PDF without changing any of the text in the PDF. And then I was able to pull it into Claude.
That's awesome.
So if you actually run into that issue with like a PDF on Claude, just go and compress it down into a smaller file size and it'll typically work. But Claude is amazing at summarizing documents, like taking an archive.org document and just shrinking it down.
Yeah, definitely Claude's great at writing. Like it's definitely the best LLM at writing right now for sure. At summarization, if I had to guess, O1 is probably better now.
You think
if
so?
I had to guess, but like, we just flew out to Boston from, me from Japan. I haven't had much time to actually like play with it.
Right.
But from people I trust on Twitter and things like that who've been trying it out, that's what I've been hearing is like in terms of editing, anything that's complex. So I assume like summarization would probably fit into that as well.
Do you know what the context window is of OpenAI O1? Does it have a limited context window?
I actually don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
we should know that. Producer.
Yeah, so the other thing that so both Claude and ChatGPT have these features where you can kind of create your own little like almost like mini apps inside of them, right? I don't know the better way to describe it, but you have custom GPTs over on ChatGPT, and then you've got projects over inside of Claude, right? And what this allows you to do is create like custom instructions for a specific use case that you might use over and over again, but also feed it some documents where you want it to use those documents for context every time you use it. Both ChatGPT and Claude can do that, but like we were talking about this off air, Claude just has a better user interface. It just feels a lot more intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, it's so OpenAI actually came up with it first, as far as we know they did. Like, they came up with custom instructions, which was great because like, okay, now you can actually give the ChatGPT like context, but it was like, okay, it's like very generic though, because you can't tell like, oh, because sometimes I'm working on my newsletter, or sometimes I'm doing Twitter, or sometimes personal stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't give it to that, you had to give it all the context for all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then then they came out with the custom GPTs, and then you could do, okay, I have one for getting in shape. I have one for my newsletter, all this kind of stuff. But the user interface was always really awkward. And then there's there's gonna be like a public store, and then there's gonna be a revenue share.
So confusing.
I didn't know they were actually doing the revenue share. Like on that one episode we did with Siki, we found out like, oh, they actually are paying people.
He's like, they do share revenue, but I'm not allowed to tell you about it.
It seemed that like he also told me, behind the scenes that he's also been pretty good for lead gen actually as well. Like people are just because there's a link to his website. So,
right.
So that's cool. But like for like a regular person, Claude came out with the projects, and I think it's so much better. Just like the whole interface where it's like, oh, okay, here's the project, and I can put files in it, I can put notes in it, whatever, to teach it, to give it all the context it needs to accomplish something. Versus having to, like when ChatGPT first came out, if you wanted to do that, I'd like be copying and pasting stuff into it.
Right.
Here's all the stuff you need to know, and here, let me copy and paste that in.
Yeah. So like one example, just to sort of make it more tangible for people, and I've shared this example on past episodes, so if you're hearing this again, well, I'm just solidifying the idea for you. But one of the ways that I use it lately is for YouTube Shorts and script writing for YouTube Shorts. And what I've done is I've created a custom project inside of Claude where I went and found about 15 different transcripts of shorts that I found on YouTube that I thought were really, really good shorts. They hooked me in. I watched the whole time. This short worked for me. It's got, 500,000, 1 million views. It's working for other people. This is a good short, right? I went and took the transcripts from those shorts, and I loaded those 15 transcripts into a project inside of Claude. And then for the custom instructions for that prompt, I would say, in your knowledge base, I've given you a bunch of transcripts of YouTube shorts that are really, really effective. I'm going to give you a topic. when I give you a topic, write a script for a short for me that is very similar in style and flow to the information that I gave you. So now I can go and, for instance, grab a blog post about something that happened in the news, right? I can grab a blog post. One that I just published was about OpenAI 01. I went and took the article that explains OpenAI's 01 from their blog, pasted it into this custom project that I made, gave no other prompt. I just literally copied and pasted the article in. It knows what it needs to do because of the custom instructions, and it wrote me a 59-second script that sounds like a lot of the scripts that I uploaded. It hits all the right beats, all the right points.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of a tangible example of like what projects can be used for in your own workflow.
That saves you so much time too, right?
Yeah.
Look, in the next 30 seconds, I'm about to let you in on something that will completely change your marketing strategy with AI. Back when we met with Greg Eisenberg, he summed up the widespread fascination with AI perfectly. Everyone from your barber to Jeff Bezos is interested in AI. So if you want to drop some AI knowledge during your next haircut, HubSpot has a new trend report that is packed with original research and data on all the AI trends to watch for this year. This PDF is the ultimate resource for you. You'll learn the top 5 AI marketing tools everyone's talking about, the tools that are driving significant return on investment, and it answers the question on everyone's mind. Is AI helping or hurting your career trajectory? You can steal the research findings from this report to revolutionize your business strategy and transform the way you work. So if you want it, grab your free copy from the link in the description below. Now back to the show.
Before, I think it was good that we came out here to Inbound, especially for me to get out of Japan for a little bit and actually talk to people in English. I was surprised how many people just don't know about projects or even custom GPTs and how much time that can save you. They're still in the land of they just go to ChatGPT every time and they're starting fresh with it having no context every single time. And then they're kind of confused by why it can't do more.
Right.
And it's if you provide it more context, it can do a whole lot more than you're currently thinking.
Yes.
Even with the current abilities of it. So, and so I think it's good that people learn that. And Claude's the best for custom projects, but you can still do it with ChatGPT. Most people use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You can do it with custom GPT.
Yeah.
You don't have to make that public either. You keep it private and it's just for you. So.
Yeah. Same with the Claude projects. You can actually, I believe you can share them. It's not public, they don't have a marketplace.
Yeah.
But you can share a link and let other people use your projects.
They have a team thing, I believe. I believe you can even share it with an entire team.
Yeah,
cool.
I believe so. The other really cool thing about Claude is their artifacts.
Yeah.
So if you are going to use it for code, it will actually show you the code in the same window and actually let you run the code if it's something that'll run in a browser. So if it's like a JavaScript or a Python code or something that can actually be executed in the browser, it will actually let you run it side by side with your chat. So you have your chat window on the left side, and on the right side, you've actually got your code, and there's usually a little toggle switch to actually view the code. And if the website populates on the right side and you can see, oh, that link is broken or this needs to be centered, you go to the left side of the chat box and say, hey, center the headline, center the call to action button or whatever. And I always thought that was really cool to not have to open it in a new tab, see what it looks like, jump back. It's just all right there on the single window.
Yeah, they're really nailing it on the user interface, right? Because why does OpenAI not have that, right? They should have that. They were there first and they just missed it. And the same thing with I'm hearing that 01 or 01 preview is the best at coding.
Yeah.
And if they had the thing where you could see the artifacts and actually see it live, that would show it to so many more people. There's a lot of great engineers on Twitter talking about, who've been really skeptical of AI and they've now tried 01 preview. And they're like, okay, it's not amazing yet, but everyone was overhyping things before. It would give you code that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't.
Yeah.
But this is a decent, not a great engineer, but it's a decent junior level engineer now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge step forward. And especially now that, OpenAI is saying it's going to get better and better, faster and faster now. So it's okay.
Well, and then we've also got Google, right? So Google has Gemini.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful parts about Gemini is it's got this monstrous context window. I can't remember if it's 1 million or if it's up to 10 million. I know at one point...
They keep increasing it. So at some point it's it's going
I know at one point they said it's going to be 10 million, but when they launched it, it was 1 million. I don't know where it's at now. It might be at 1, 2 million, and they might have already bumped it to 10 million.
I
don't remember.
But with RAM with computers or something it's okay. You have 1 gig, 2 gig, 4, or whatever.
And just to put that into context, right? So a 10 million context window means that you can upload about 7.5 million words between what you give it and what you get back. The combination of the two can be about 7.5 million words. That's all of the Harry Potter books, all of the Game of Thrones books,
the Bible,
all of that combined, all into a single, like, you could put all of that in there all at once, right? And so when it comes to what is Google Gemini good at, it's the largest in terms of context window and how much data you can upload into it. But one thing that Google did recently with Gemini that I think is really, really cool is the Notebook LM. That's the one where you can actually upload all of these documents and it will create an audio podcast for you out of these documents. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't. No.
Oh my gosh. You're in for a treat when you play with this. So Notebook LM, you can go to it. I don't know if you have to be a paid member of Gemini or not, but you can go into this Notebook LM and you can drop files into a folder. So you can go to like archive.org, download the most complex research paper you've ever seen that you have no idea what it means, right? Pull that PDF, throw it into this Notebook LM tool, and Notebook LM will actually generate an audio podcast for you that explains the PDF. And it's so two hosts. There's a male and a female host. They're AI-generated voices, and they have a conversation back and forth, kind of like the conversation we're having now, right? They have a conversation back and forth that explains the PDF in terms that like anybody can understand. And because they have such a large context window, you can throw a ton of documents in here, right? You can go and find we can go and throw the blog post about ChatGPT in there, a blog post explaining Claude in there, a blog post explaining Grok, a blog post explaining Gemini. Throw all of that data in there, and it'll create a podcast out of that information that explains the pros and the cons and the differences between the two.
Yeah, it seems like Google's doing a lot of cool stuff. It's just like people don't know about it. And even me, like I know about some of it, but it's hard to get the habit. Like I have the habit of using ChatGPT. And even I use Claude a bit now. It's so hard. Like there's so many of them.
So I mean, like, I have a feeling we're going to start hearing a lot of AI generated podcasts because of it. Because anybody can go and take the latest like 10 news articles in the AI world, throw them all into Notebook LM, and then have it spit out a podcast for you explaining what's going on in all of these news articles.
Oh no, our buddy is already doing the TED AI podcast, so they're going to replace.
And then if you want to take it to a next level too, you can create some like custom characters inside of like Midjourney or Flux or Leonardo or whatever AI image tool you use. Create some images of some characters. Throw those into like a HeyGen or a DID tool, and then have them actually talking. So you can make video content of two people having a podcast conversation based on all of the data that you uploaded. And that's all totally possible right now, like today with current tech.
Like the next level, like VTuber or something too. Like there's
except the VTuber doesn't even exist. It's all generated with AI. It's really wild. Notebook LM is one of the things I've had a lot of fun playing with. I think once you actually go mess with it, you'll be like, oh, damn, this is cool.
Okay, so that's what Gemini is good at. Huge context and
making podcasts now. Yeah, replacing us. Yeah.
Disclaimer, this is actually not us talking. This is
surprise. This is Notebook LM all along. And also Gemini does have their own version of custom GPTs and projects. They call them gems. But they're not nearly as robust. You can't do as much with them. They don't seem to connect to like APIs or use tools or anything like that. But you can give it your own context and your own custom instructions, similar to you can with projects and with custom GPTs. I haven't played with gems at all yet because I have my needs met with Claude and ChatGPT already. But they have that as well if that's something you're interested in. And then we also wanted to talk quickly about Llama. So Llama is open source, right? And Llama it doesn't really excel in any of the areas we've talked about, right? Like Claude Sonnet 3.5 is going to be better than the outputs for Llama for the most part. Same with the latest models of ChatGPT, same with Gemini. All of those closed off models, they're going to be a little bit better. But if you really, really want like your data to be secure, you want to run it on your own hard drive, you don't want it to be connected to the internet, you don't want your data going to OpenAI, you don't want your data going to Google or Anthropic or any of these companies, that's where tools like Llama come into play because you can install them locally on your own computer and they're pretty good. I mean, for 90+% of use cases for people, they're going to be good enough. you know? And so that's really where Llama comes into play. The other thing about Llama is because it's open source, people can build off of it. They can iterate off of it. They can go and make their own sort of fine tunes of it and, you know, tweak it and train it and sort of mold it. So if you wanted an uncensored Llama, you can get there if you wanted to.
Do you actually ever use it though? Or have you just only tried it? Because I've only tried it. I've never built a habit of actually using it.
So I use a Llama a little bit, but it's only because I have my Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses and Llama's built into it. So I use Llama like built into the sunglasses.
I'm glad it exists though. Like I've said before, like I hate the idea of everything being OpenAI, and now they're like collaborating with the U.S. government as well. It's like in the future, like the idea that like all of our intelligence isn't controlled by one company, is kind of scary. So I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, and then you know, finally we've got Grok, right? And Grok, again, I don't know if it's like really better than any of the other ones at almost anything.
Well, it has access to Twitter data, so that's one thing.
Yeah, so it's got the Twitter data, and it's completely uncensored. Like completely like
99.99. Yeah.
I mean, I've asked it questions that I thought for sure there's no way it was going to answer. Yeah. And it answered it for me, like broke down recipes it should not be giving me, things like that.
Okay. And now you're like on an FBI watch list.
Exactly. But it is very, very uncensored. It's got a really cool image generation model built into it called Flux One, which is capable of making really, really realistic images. Yeah. And also pretty uncensored. I'm not going to say fully uncensored, because it's not going to do any like super adult content, right? But it's uncensored in the terms that you can prompt anybody's names, like celebrities, and
it'll be like crazy political memes or whatever, right? That's one of the things people are using it for a lot.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is illegal in California as of this week.
Which is nuts.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
So Gavin Newsom in California just signed a bill basically making like political memes that were generated with AI illegal in California. But we don't need to get there. We don't need to get into
I have a feeling that's going to go to the Supreme Court, but anyways.
That's going to be interesting to watch play out. I mean, Elon Musk moved to Austin now, so he's not really under California rules. Right. But as soon as that law came out, Elon went and posted some sort of crazy meme and said, oh, this would suck if this ended up being seen in California or something like that. Right. So, you know, Elon, he's a troll.
Yeah. I mean, so Grok is it's gotten better though. Like the fact like they started for like nothing. Like what was like a year ago, or it wasn't that long. And it was like people were like, oh, there's no way he's gonna catch up. And it's like, well, he hasn't caught up, but like it's pretty decent now. Yeah. Like you know, I'm not going to use it over ChatGPT, obviously, but it's decent.
So what sort of you're talking about this before we hit record, but what sort of like use cases would you use it for, like in terms of it like hunting Twitter profiles for you?
Yeah, I've used it a little bit like this. I think it was Robert Scoble, it was someone like that who shared it, how they were using it. That you can like pull up data about users, right? Like you can pull up like what kind of tweets do they do? What are their top tweets? Just anything, you know, I'm not using it a lot for that, you know, use case. I don't really have a huge need for that. But it works for that. It's like it's the best for that right now. Yeah. I mean, also you can pull up things about news too, though, right? Because it's got access to what people are tweeting about. So if you want information about something that's currently hot and happening right now, is probably the best for that. Yeah, but there is also some downsides to that as well, right? Like, if people are posting memes as if it's real news, it might think it's real news and feed it back to you. Right. So there's that as well. And then the very last one I want to touch on really quickly, because I think when it comes to research, right? When you want to like deep dive and learn on a topic or, you know, find information about something specific, it actually needs to search the web. I still think Perplexity hands down is the best. Yeah. Now, Perplexity is model agnostic. If you have a pro membership for Perplexity, you can get in there and choose, I want to use GPT-4. They actually just added OpenAI 01 in there as well as one of the models you can use. You can pick Claude, you can pick Llama, you can pick any of these models, and it will use whatever your model of choice is. But what it'll do is it'll search the internet, find information for you, and then once it finds the information, it uses its large language model to help sort of summarize and make the information that it gathered for you a little bit easier to digest. Yeah, I mean, Perplexity, I mean, there was a reason that, you know, we got Aravind Srinivas, the CEO, to come on. He was like one of our first 2 guests, I guess. Yeah. And that was the reason that I wanted to get him on, because like, I've been using Perplexity for like since the early days of it. It's like, it's been one of the most useful things, and like early on, most people didn't know about it, and people in Silicon Valley were talking about it. But like outside of that, it was like, everything was ChatGPT. I'm like, people are kind of sleeping on Perplexity. It's like pretty damn good. Yeah. No, I love Perplexity. I mean, honestly, when it comes to using AI, just Yeah.
The AI tool that I use the most, more than any other AI tool, right now for me, it's Perplexity.
Yeah.
I go to Perplexity more than any other AI tool because I just get random ideas. Like I'll be walking and I'll see like a tall building and I'll think it's like a fascinating architecture and I'll just be like, who built this building and why does it look so cool? Or, you know, something really random. Like I just ask so many random questions to Perplexity. It like feeds my curiosity.
And it's amazing for podcasts too, right? Like, so I was, we you know, here at Inbound, there was a event yesterday where like a bunch of podcast hosts were there, and I talked to a few of them, and they didn't know about this. They didn't know that, like, oh yeah, when you're interviewing somebody, Perplexity is by far the best way to like pull up notes about what you should talk to them about.
Yeah, like, you just have to be careful because sometimes it will pull up like LinkedIn profiles of like the complete wrong person.
You're right.
Like if you start asking questions about Matt Wolf, it will. There's a professional golfer named Matt Wolf also.
Right? And they're talking about golf, and you're like, what?
Yeah, well, it'll give you a mix, right? Like I've had it summarized, and it'll say, you know, Matt Wolf co-hosts the Next Wave podcast. He's got a popular YouTube channel. He's, you know, his handicap at golf is this, and like, and it'll start to like blend the two. So you probably want to double check sometimes, but for the most part, it's pretty good, right? It's pretty dang good. But you know, to go ahead and wrap this one up, I want to kind of let's like sort of rapid fire like use cases, best tool for that use case, right? Okay. So like copywriting and storytelling for me, I'm probably going to Claude.
Yeah, Claude.
Yeah. For coding, for me, I'm probably still going to Claude, but maybe OpenAI 01. I haven't tried it for coding yet myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I code more than you, right? So like, I'm more, you know, for you, I think when you can use Claude, you can actually just see it right there, right? Which is obviously awesome.
Yeah.
But, you know, as someone who codes, like for me, like, you know, 01, you know, preview, at least from what I've heard from people I trust, if it's better, then I would definitely be going with 01 preview. Yeah. And I'd be using it in some like Cursor.
Yeah.
Cursor's amazing.
For sure. Cursor is great. It's a fork of Visual Studio Code with like AI built into it.
Yeah, where it can like read your whole code base and it basically has context of your entire code base when you're working on something. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, since OpenAI 01 came out, I've literally been traveling the entire month, so I have not had like a focus session to play with it. So my answer might change on that one. You want something completely uncensored, anything goes. I think Grok is the obvious answer for that one, right?
Yeah.
Also, really, really realistic images.
Yeah,
right?
Great memes. Like, it's good for memes.
Great for making memes. Great, like the images, it'll generate like really realistic pictures of people that either exist or don't exist, right? It's really good at that with Flux One built into it.
Yeah.
So math, science, logic, that kind of stuff, we're looking at OpenAI 01. That's really the only one that's going to do that really well right now. Right. For research, for me, Perplexity, like I said, that's the one I go to.
Yeah, I think we're the same on most of these. There's any major disagreements.
And then if you need super, super long context, if you need to upload all the Harry Potter books and all the Lord of the Rings books and all the Game of Thrones books, and you need to find a good comparison between all of them, you're going to go to Gemini. And then also Gemini is really good
or to create this podcast.
For creating a podcast and replacing our jobs.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the breakdown, I guess, of like what these different models are good at and what we use them for. I think that covers everything. So, you know, if you're listening to this podcast and you like stuff like this, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. We're going to keep on putting out videos like this. We're going to get a lot more tactical. We're going to give you a lot more use cases, a lot more ways to actually implement this AI in your business. So subscribe on YouTube. If you prefer audio, we're wherever you find podcasts. So make sure you subscribe on all of those platforms. And thank you so much for tuning in with us today.
Yeah, thank you.